Still playing a little bit with these lights in the dash, and I have discovered that this is in fact an original style light, although it doesn't look like it anymore. And as I remember now, looking back, this had a coil of wire wrapped around it that was from the ground, and it had an insulator on the back and a spring and a bunch of other stuff that was not in very good shape, and we stripped it off. So I did some searching, and you can still get these lights, although most of the ones I've seen are in England or Great Britain, however you want to call it. And they're not cheap. I have to admit I'm a little bit of a chunce, but sometimes that doesn't pay off. So I was going to finally decided to put this light in. Got two leads coming off the back, and we'd have to use these washers on either side because this light is smaller than the hole. And of course I thought about using this Merit style light, but couldn't get a red one, didn't want to put a green one in, and really these aren't easy to find bulbs for either. So I might just bite the bullet and buy one of these at least in red. I think the other light that I have, the Merit red, I can use for the fuel tank light, because I think that's just a simple power to the light and ground when the sender, the float drops below and grounds the sender. So I think we'll be okay there, but I'm not sure, and maybe somebody, one of the viewers, can educate me. I'm not sure that this light here with the coil of wire wrapped around it didn't have a particular meaning as far as the generator is concerned, because from what I understand, when you turn the ignition on, obviously the engine's not running, this light would ground through the alternator, through the generator somehow on the D side of the generator, and then once the engine gets going and gets up to speed and the generator starts putting out current, that ground opens up and this light goes off. So I'm just not sure if that coil of wire isn't necessary on there to make that work properly versus just a simple ground and hot. So I probably will put an order in, get one of these brand new from across the pond, and when I say they're expensive, probably, you know, $60, $65 by the time it's landed here, and that's a lot of money to pay for a little light. But you know, we're getting towards the end of this project. We're this far into it, and sometimes it doesn't pay to be a chunce. We'll see. I thought maybe I'd take a little break from the wiring nightmare and work on something else. So I dug out the vent lines for the carburetors and thought, see if I could get them installed. You know, originally somebody had taken and cut the old ones off and actually smashed them shut. I cut the smash portion off, and so at least we had a vent when we ran it on the engine stand. But we went ahead and ordered some new tubing, and of course it comes coiled up in a little roll here, so the first thing you have to do is uncoil it without kinking it, and it may pay to just warm that stuff up a little bit, probably a little easier to deal with, not too warm but just enough so that it's a little more flexible. But we put the front one on, and from what I see in pictures, they run the vent down and down in front of the motor, and then it just blows back under the car. I'm not sure how cool that is if you are overfilling your carburetors and the fuel is blowing back there on the hot exhaust. I don't think that's too cool, but you know, better than dumping it in the engine compartment. So we put this one on and made some fancy bends in here. Obviously we want to keep it away from the exhaust manifold. It's probably in reality a lot longer than it needs to be, and it's going to need some support here, because if this is just left to vibrate around, it won't be long before that breaks off. So we've got to put the other one on, and we'll run it down behind the linkage there, and hopefully we can get the two of them together and then run down, and they'll have a little bit more support. And then we're going to have to put some kind of a bracket or something here to support that thing, and we'll work on that later. But I thought this would take my mind off the wiring, and not really. This is just as aggravating. So these are the kind of jobs that are just not fun. I mean, the nice thing would be that, and we're spoiled by modern technology, but the nice thing is that this would come pre-bent and you just bolt it on. That's not the way this stuff goes, so you gotta figure out your own fancy way of routing the thing so it doesn't look like your cousin Louis did it. And I'm afraid that this is starting to look like my cousin Louis did it. But we'll see if we can't tidy it up a little bit, and hopefully we can make it work. Today, the postman brought us a prize today, and man, we've been looking for this for a long time. What we did is, you may remember, sent our speedometer out to be professionally repaired, and we got it back. Looks pretty tidy. It's not spiffy, super duper brand new concours ready. It's sort of as is restored, if you want to call it that. This speedometer is a km/h speedometer. They're fairly hard to come by. The place that did it did not have a new face, and to be honest, I was okay with that. In fact, I asked them to reuse the original face just for the patina. It kind of fits in along with everything else. We had some of the bits, but it was all disassembled and didn't work. So now hopefully it's all assembled and works. And I don't very often mention our suppliers. We don't get anything out of it, but you know, if we have a supplier that's good and does a good job, we'll let you know. So thought maybe their name would be on that box, but we get most of our stuff, most of the parts for this car, from a company called From the Frame Up, and they are in Mesa, Arizona. Doug Pelton, I think, is the owner's name, and I have to say that they are good people to deal with. They seem to have every last nut and bolt, and I have actually learned through some looking and asking that they have the dash lights that we talked about the other day, so I'm going to get my dash lamp from them instead of England, and hopefully we can get this dash finished up. But that's a real plus. We'll go over here and see if we can fit it into the dash and see how it looks. Well, we did have to do some fiddling with the hole. Don't know why, but had to open that hole up just a little bit, but we've got our Speedo in there, and man, that's got to be the first time that dash has been complete, more or less, in 50 years at least. So we got our Speedo, and then on the other side we got our tacho, and we're going to get our ignition warning light, and then we have our choke and starter cable to go in there. I think this over here is the slow run cable. One of them I don't know. One of them is a screw type thing that you unscrew so that you can wind the throttle open and then have it sit there. And I don't remember. I've got 3 knobs but I only have 2 cables. This one is non-functional, so I'll have to figure out which one that is, and could be since I'm going all out. Could be we'll get that one, but I've got to get a couple of bolts here for the center of the dash, and may as well go ahead and order them when I order this light, and maybe I'll get the cable at the same time, and it'll all come in the same package to save postage. But man, that's you kind of feel like we've accomplished something, you know what I mean? Tried to do a tidy job on these vent lines. I don't know how good I am at tidy, but we got this one down and around, and we got that one down and around, and we got them coming together over there and down the front. I'm gonna have to put something down there on the motor plate or somewhere to stabilize those things, because you can't just have them vibrating around like that. We've got them tie wrapped together there. Not sure they had tie wraps back in 1947, but there you go. We'll think about a little bracket or something after a while. Time to go back to wiring. All right, did some more wiring here on our newly acquired or refurbished tachometer. And let's see, boy, we got nice green light on both sides of the tachometer, and green lights on both sides of the speedometer, and a green light on the oil pressure, and even a green light on the make-believe or aftermarket, whatever you want to call it, amp meter. We found a little green sleeve to put over the bulb, and let's see if we can turn them off. Yep, and back on again. Yep. So after what seems like hours and hours and hours of tinkering around, I think we got something. The job that never ends. Wiring. We've got a few other things to wire up on the dash. One of them is the horn button and turn signal switch. This is the remains, I think, of the original one. Got a wire soldered on there and a lump of solder there. And then we have these bits and pieces with wires soldered in various places, and that's no bueno. So somewhere along the line, back at the beginning of this project, we bought a new horn button, and I guess you'd call this a dip switch. We probably call it a dimmer switch here, but seems like from what I read in England, you drive around with the bright lights on and then dip your lights if somebody's coming the other way, if I'm correct. Here in the US, we drive around on low beams, And if the road is clear and there's nobody around, you can switch to high beams. And then if somebody's coming the other way, you can dip your lights back to low beams. Don't know if that's an accurate representation or not, but that's what I think. So I guess what I think is the only thing that matters, because I'm doing it. So anyway, I took this apart. This appears to be really a brand new switch. From what I can see, this is the horn button, and there's a little brass contact here with 2 contacts. So when you push that button down, that makes connection there, and I don't know what that does, because let's see. I guess, yeah, okay. The common deal is back here, and when you push that down and make that connection, it completes the circuit between these 2 wires, and that's what makes your horn blow. So I don't know in this case if the hot runs through the horn or the ground runs through the horn. Normally the ground would run through the horn, and all you do when you do this is you're grounding the horn and make the horn blow. We'll have to see about that. That's another thing. I've got some horns that came with this that were mounted on the, I'd call it the firewall, but I don't know what they call it anymore. I didn't like that. They were ugly looking, so I'm going to have to think about what I do for a horn. They make horns that mount out on the badge bar, and man, are they expensive. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Maybe we'll get one of those little bicycle bulb things and just mount it there, and you can squeeze it. So then that part lays on top of this part in some fashion, I guess, like that. And here you have 3 screws down in there, and you have a switch in the back, and essentially that just goes from one lug to the other, depending on, I suppose it's power in here would make sense, and then whichever light you want, high or low, is power out. So that would be power out to that one or power out to that one. I'm going to assume that that's how it works. I'm going to have to look at the wiring schematic and see if that's accurate. Then the whole thing mounts to this little plate, and then there's a backer and some screws, and Bob's your uncle. So I'm going to have to look in the wiring and see just where these wires all go. In theory, at least from what I'm used to, the headlights can be turned on independent of the ignition. So in other words, they're sort of have power to them all the time. So if you shut the car off and you need to leave the lights on for a minute, you can do that without the car running. I don't know if that's the way they wired them back in the day. I'll have to see where this power wire comes from, because the ignition switch has a 2-position switch that is either headlights or side lights. And I'm going to have to see how that works. Normally nowadays, the park lights or the side lights are on all of the time. So if you have parking lights on, your parking lights are on. If you have headlights on, your parking lights are on, which includes the tail lights. Back in the day, they didn't do that. You had your little side marker lights or park lights, whatever you want to call them, little lights on top of the fenders, and maybe not the tail lights, because I'm not sure that the tail lights don't work off of another switch. I'll have to go back and look at that. I have to see what's on when and who does what to who. But anyway, that's the next project. We're going to have to study the wiring schematic, which is sometimes helpful, sometimes not. I still like this schematic. this switch, fog lamp switch, has a wire out, the red one with the yellow stripes, to the fog lights, and it has 3 wires on the other side, and they go to, let's see where that goes. A petrol warning light, and looks like a tail light. Yeah, stop light. Oh, they go to the stop light switch, the petrol warning light, and where does the other one go? Stop lamp switch, petrol warning light, and where does the other one go? The 30-mile-per-hour light. So that's nice. We got 3 of these going to those places to work those lights, and this one going to the front to work the fog lights. And I can't for the life of me figure out, where does that switch get its power? The wire that goes to the 30-mile-an-hour switch goes to the speedometer, and I would assume that there's something in there that goes to ground and turns that light on. I don't know. The stop lamp switch just has a wire going in and then a wire out to the stop lights, so that conceivably is a power wire into the switch. You make the switch, power goes back to the lights and lights the light. And the petrol warning light is the same thing. So I don't understand, how does that switch get its power? So maybe somebody can explain that to me. I know what I'm going to do, but there's a couple of things at this diagram I just don't get, like the fact that, you know, there's a dash, well, let's see what it is, a panel lamp, those are dash lights. We're a map and reading lamp switch, and there's only one of them, and there's 2 map and reading light switches. So we've been ragging on that before, but you know, little things confuse old people. So we got our horn button, dip switch, dimmer switch, whatever you want to call it, and put some wires in there. We just can't get away from the red wires. The blues are for the horn, and what I am sensing is that this just completes the ground. So they show one of these leads going all the way back to the E terminal on the regulator. I don't know why you would do that. Seems to me you could ground it anywhere under the chassis there, and then the other side just runs out to the horn, and when you push a button in, it completes the circuit and grounds the horn. So the horn gets its power from somewhere else. Let's put it that way. We'll have to figure out where that somewhere else is. And then we have our 3 wires here. This one, the red, I made it red and yellow, would be power in to the lights, and I think that comes from the H terminal on the ignition switch. And these 2 I made red and white and red and silver, or red and gray. One would go to high beams and one would go to low beams, and we just ran those leads long till we figure out exactly what we're going to do, if we put plugs on the end or run them to a common plug, or what we do, so that we can then couple them to the wires that are already on the car. So that's an interesting question. Let me see if I can figure out while we're here where that horn derives its power from. So we have, according to the diagram, a purple and black. The purple and black appears to be the ground side, and the purple itself comes off of the A2 terminal in the control box. So yeah, it's probably going to be powered all the time. So we can do that. Okay, another day in the shop because it's cold and rainy and muddy in the backyard. So I think I have connected a wire everywhere there that I can. I think we've got two lights here for the speedometer. We repurposed our original sockets. Good ground. We have the map light on both sides. This yellow wire runs out to the rest of the car, along with this red wire from the A terminal, and that's primarily what powers the ignition switch, is the A terminal there. Of course, this yellow wire is the other side of the amp meter. And then we have our wires on the other side of the amp meter that go to the map lights, so they're live all the time, power all the time. And this other wire runs over here to the test lug on the dash. And then we have the H terminal here that runs over here to the dip switch, and we have our two high and low beam wires coming out of the dip switch. And then we have, I think this is the T terminal and we just looped these wires together, but tail lights and front fender marker lights. There's another lug here, and I don't know what goes there, and I don't have a screw in that, so, and I don't see it marked on the schematic, so we'll just punt there. We have the horn button and the dip switch, so we have our two horn wires. One will ground, and they show it going all the way out to the E terminal out in the box. I don't know why you would run the wire all the way out there. It can ground to the chassis somewhere up by the dash. The other one goes to the horn, so when you push the horn button, it makes that connection, and then we would have to run a hot wire to the horn, and that can really, depending on where the horn is, that can come from anywhere. If we mount the horn on the foot box there, the wire can just come up off of the starter and or off the regulator box there and power the horn. So we're gonna have to figure out where we're gonna put that horn. Moving along, we have an oil pressure gauge that doesn't require any lights or wires. We still have to glue this little light in there for the oil pressure. We have our two dash switches. This one is for fog lights, and we don't have fog lights. And the other wire goes to the low fuel warning light, and we're going to have to run a power to that. Probably just come off of this post right here, since it has power all the time. We can just loop over there, put a little jumper in there, or on the other side actually of that switch, and then the low fuel warning lamp would only turn on when you turn that switch on, which might be kind of cool, because if you put 10 gallons of fuel in it, you don't need to worry about the low fuel warning light coming on, and then, you know, if you're driving along and you want to check it, you can just turn that switch on. We have the other switch here that powers the dash lights, and that comes off of that ignition switch lug there and powers the dash lights. And then we have our charge lamp, whatever you want to call it. We've got to get a new one of those, but we've got a wire to that, and it'll also get a ground when we get that. And then of course we have our map light, and same thing over here. We have our two lights for the tachometer, and Then we have our low fuel light over here. We're going to have to connect a wire here and run it back to the sending unit. I think that will really pretty much wire up the dash. Now what we're going to try to do is group these wires. These blues are the ground. These two reds are for the headlights, and these two browns are for the tail lights and side marker lights. So what I'm going to try to do is maybe put a plug on these 4 wires, and that way the plug can hide up under the dash, and then we just plug the rest of our loom into it. That way we'd be able to remove the dash. And you know, the same for these wires over here. We're going to have to put some thought into that, but it's almost time to set this dash back up into place and start coupling these wires to the rest of the car, more or less. I mean, that's really where we are. I think we're okay. I think we've got pretty much everything we need to get. We're going to have to make sure that these wires, because this mounts to another piece of wood, we don't want to pinch any of these wires in between those two pieces. So that's probably the next step.